Hey guys, tonight we're stepping into something darker than usual. Turn down the lights, maybe keep one candle burning, and let the rain whisper against your window. You can almost hear the low, hungry hum of the power lines outside your house, which is exactly the kind of atmosphere we need for tonight's chilling story. We're going deep into the heart of a place where fun goes to die. An abandoned amusement park called Wonderworld. I'm here to tell you about the rules, the ones they don't print on the tickets, and the things that happen when they're broken. It's the kind of story that makes you check the shadows behind your screen. Speaking of which, if you hear knocking behind you, just ignore it. It's probably just the wind, or maybe the restless ghost of a clown who didn't hit his word count. So, before you settle in, take a second to like the video and subscribe. But only if you're brave enough to handle what's coming. Let me know where you're listening from and what time it is there in the comments. Now, turn off the lights, maybe keep one candle burning, and let's begin tonight's haunting together. You step into the maintenance shed at Wonderworld, and the air immediately feels heavy, thick with the smell of rust, stale popcorn grease, and something metallic, like old pennies. You're 24, kicked out by your well-meaning but utterly frustrating parents who thought you were coasting. Your 24th birthday passed with no fanfare, no candles. You applied to hundreds of places, desperate to avoid the lifetime of debt college promised. When this offer came in food, shelter, a fresh start, you took it. This job, cleaning up the mess and maintaining the structures of this massive, slightly forgotten park, was your escape, your new home. Your supervisor, Wheeze, is a lean man with perpetually tired eyes. He's the clerk in this story, the one who shows you the ropes, which mostly involves long nights and surprisingly intense trail maintenance. He hands you a laminated card. It's the official rulebook for the seasonal staff, and it's surprisingly thin. Then he slides another, handwritten index card across the desk. This is the important one, he whispers, his voice barely audible over the hum of the old fluorescent lights. The 7 strange rules. The park doesn't talk about them, but if you break one, you're not just fired, you're gone. He stares at you, his concern genuine. You feel the lingering memory of your parents' worried faces as you drove away from home, a feeling that still hasn't left you. You try to crack a nervous joke, but Wheeze doesn't smile. Rule number 1, he begins, leaning closer. You must always exit the park by 3:00 a.m. If the main gates lock, don't try to go over or under the fence. Wait until dawn. No matter what you hear, never stay in the park after 3:00 a.m. It sounds like a simple, slightly dramatic policy, but the way he says never sends a chill up your spine. You're immediately reminded of the classic folklore surrounding the wild hunt, where nocturnal riders or spirits gather souls during the deepest hours of the night. It's a primal fear, the idea that something ancient is active when the world sleeps. Researchers still argue whether stories like the wild hunt originated from astronomical events, mass hysteria, or just terrifying natural wind phenomena. But the fear of the dark hours remains a psychological constant. Louise is certainly terrified. You read the card again. It also includes an eerie or odd fact that seems completely out of place on a park rule card. The human brain can sometimes process sounds and voices while in the hypnagogic state, the transition between waking and sleep, leading to auditory hallucinations that feel utterly real. And the unofficial rule, Rule 0, if you will, he says, looking away toward the dark window, is this: don't ever try to find out what happens when a rule is broken. You put the card in your pocket. You're here for an escape, an adventure, and a job. You're not here for trouble. You feel the pressure of the hundreds of miles you drove to North Carolina, the change in environment from arid Utah to lush, frightening greenery. It's a completely different world out here. And you realize, as you look at Weiss' haunted eyes, that this job isn't going to be the simple, fresh start you hoped for. You've signed up for something far more complex than just maintaining the trails and cleaning campsites. The park outside is vast and silent. You know that somewhere in that dark, sprawling complex, the rules are waiting to be broken, and you wonder, is Rule 1 designed to keep people in their cars, or to keep something else out? You slip out of the shed and start your night rounds. The silence of the closed park is its own character, vast and unnerving. You begin to feel the pressure of the 7 strange rules already, and it's only your first week. The official schedule has you cleaning up the area around the Skyrider coaster, a massive, rusted steel skeleton that dominates the skyline. It's been closed for years, deemed too costly to maintain, and now it stands like a giant metal gravestone. Around 1:00 a.m., you're sweeping the perimeter near the coaster's tallest drop, and you notice something strange high up on the track, where the carts normally slow before the descent. You see a row of lights, 8, maybe 10 of them, moving in a uniform, single-file line across the structure. They're perfectly spaced, gliding silently. It's too coordinated to be maintenance crew, and definitely too high and smooth to be park guests. Your first thought, your immediate panic, is that you're witnessing something utterly inexplicable. You briefly entertain the idea that the park is using secret drones or a new, high-tech security system. It was the same feeling Weiss described when he and his old partner, Clark, saw something in the night sky and immediately went to bed believing, with 100% certainty, that they had witnessed aliens. You reach for your radio, ready to report it. But then, your mind snaps back to a more rational explanation. You remember Weiss recounting a story about a row of lights he saw in the wilderness, which turned out to be the SpaceX Starlink satellites. The feeling of being completely certain you've seen something alien, only to realize it's just technology, is a peculiar form of modern horror, the mundane, undermining the mystical. You realize these are likely just maintenance crews Weiss didn't mention, Or maybe even those Starlink satellites passing low over the city. After all, the lights were uniform, not erratic. You pack up your gear and decide to head back to base camp, hightailing it back to the visitor center. You walk past the park's administrative building and remember rule number 2. Do not look directly at the mascot heads or discarded uniforms after midnight, especially if they are wet. It's a ridiculous rule, but you've seen the masks in the back cheap, sweaty latex with painted, vacant eyes. It's an unsettling psychological fact that the human brain is highly attuned to recognizing faces, a phenomenon called pareidolia, which is why we see faces in clouds or electrical sockets. But that same instinct can be weaponized by the uncanny valley, making things that are almost human, like these discarded mascot heads, profoundly disturbing. You recall another creepy fact we've mentioned. Some cultures believe that mirrors or reflective surfaces trap or drain the essence of a soul, which is why objects associated with identity, like clothing or masks, are so often used in sympathetic magic. Maybe the rule is superstitious, or maybe those empty eyes truly see you. You make it back to the visitor center and check the logs. Everything is quiet. But as you settle into the bunk provided by the Forest Service, your food and shelter, you can't shake the image of those silent, gliding lights. You think, this is just a job. This is just a paycheck. It's just a park, and those were just lights, whether from a drone or a satellite. An investigative phrase runs through your mind. Skeptics would argue that eyewitness accounts of coordinated lights are almost always attributable to military exercises or commercial air traffic, not paranormal activity. But deep down, you know we wouldn't be this nervous about Starlink. He had already seen that trick. You wonder if those lights were coming from above the coaster or out of it, and as you finally drift toward sleep, you swear you hear the faint, high-pitched whine of metal under stress, miles away in the dark. The following evening, a thick fog has rolled in from the marshland that borders the park. It's perfect, classic horror movie weather. You're back at the visitor center, doing paperwork and trying to ignore the oppressive silence. You're trying to believe the lights you saw were just drones, but the isolation here, hundreds of miles from home, makes your imagination run wild. Louise is working on inventory in the next room. Suddenly, you hear a sound coming from the outer door to the staff break room, which doubles as the storage shed. It's a soft, rhythmic scratching sound. THTHK, THTHK, THTHK. It sounds like a nervous animal, maybe a raccoon or a stray dog. But it's followed by a tearing, rough noise, like thick canvas being worried at. You remember we's talking about a family who claimed they were attacked in their sleep, peeling out of the parking lot before anyone could ask what happened. He checked the site and found a partially destroyed drawing in the fire pit. You cautiously approach the break room door. The scratching sound stops, replaced by a low, guttural snuffling right on the other side of the wood. You freeze, thinking bear. You turn around to grab a broom, and when you look back, the tearing noise has started again. Faster now, more frantic. Whis comes up behind you, holding a flashlight. He looks pale. "What is that?" he mouths. You point to the door. Sounds like something biting the wood. Whis recounts the story of the family who were attacked in their sleep, explaining his theory. It wasn't a monster, but just some curious wild animals. He believed the family's drawing of winged skulls biting the sides of the tent was just a traumatized child's interpretation of something mundane. He explains in a soft, almost ASMR tone that the animals in his previous job, it was wild horses, will sometimes bite the sides of tents out of curiosity. From the inside, he says, it's terrifying. Can you imagine a floating mouth with human-looking teeth and gums biting your tent? The horses would wake people up by biting the sides of the tents. It would be enough to make anyone hide in their sleeping bag. You consider this and agree it's an unsettling thought. It's an example of how misinterpretation, fueled by fear, transforms the ordinary into the paranormal. Whis is trying to be the skeptic, finding the normal explanation for strange occurrences. An investigative mind must always seek the mundane explanation before leaping to the supernatural. But the current rule you're focused on tonight is rule number 3. Do not acknowledge the whispers in the air vents. Do not attempt to reply to them, even if they call your name. The noise behind the door now sounds less like a horse and more deliberately violent. The family Whis mentioned had left behind a drawing that showed the parents with their heads hung low, while the son was frightened in the tent. That's a deep level of trauma for a simple horse bite. You can almost hear the low, rasping breaths on the other side of the door. You shine your light down and notice something on the floor beneath the door jamb. A few drops of thick, dark liquid are pooling there. Not blood, but something sticky and black, like motor oil. Whatever it is, it's going to chew through the door, you whisper. He shakes his head, trying to rationalize. It's just the old mascot heads. They're probably stored in there. Maybe a spill of motor oil or hydraulic fluid. You pull out the rule card you got from Whis. Rule number 3. You wonder if the rhythmic scratching is less about biting and more about communication, like a drum beat. You recall the real-world historical haunting of the Bell Witch, where physical rapping and scratching sounds were believed to be a form of poltergeist communication, terrorizing a single family. You and Whis exchange a nervous glance. The sound stops abruptly. Absolute silence. You wait for several heart-stopping minutes. Whis finally breaks the silence. Let's just lock this up. It's probably just some wild horses getting curious. You agree, but you're not convinced. You know that right now, there is something going on that Whis cannot explain. You look down at the dark, viscous liquid on the floor. It's too black to be motor oil. It's too thick to be anything natural. You decide to avoid the break room until morning. You realize you're starting to get the feeling of many strange things since you started working here, and as you back away from the door, you hear a very faint, dry whisper from the other side of the vent, so low you can barely register it. Don't open it. Remember that whisper in the attic. This is worse. This is the sound of pure, unadulterated fear running right at you. It's the next day, and you're watering the sickly flowers outside the visitor station. It's mundane, normal, and a relief. Then you see him, a hiker, or maybe a former park guest, emerging from the dense, overgrown section of the woods that marks the park's restricted border. He's moving frantically, sprinting towards the building. Your first, light-hearted thought is, when you gotta go, you gotta go. But he's not going to the public bathrooms. As soon as he enters the restroom building, he comes right back out. He looks around desperately for a moment, then beelines straight for the visitor center. You realize you messed up. You forgot to lock the main door while you were working outside. You shout after him that the center is closed, but he doesn't listen. He flings the door open with such violence, you think the glass is going to shatter. Then he slams it shut, locking it from the inside. You fumble with your keys and peer through the glass to get a better look at the man who has barricaded himself in your office. He catches your eye and screams, muffled by the door. No, don't open it. They followed me. Your mind races, running through every mundane horror. Bears, bees, a very angry flock of Canada geese. You turn around to look for whatever is chasing him, and you see nothing. You peer back through the glass. He looks like absolute hell. Sunken eyes, hysterical hair, and profoundly dehydrated. He looks like he's been running through a briar patch, off trail, possibly shirtless. He's covered in scrapes and bruises, bleeding from too many places to count. He looks like he's been out in the woods for weeks, not just a weekend. You see an opportunity when he looks away from the lock for a second. He quickly opens the door, grabs you by the collar, and drags you forcefully into the building. You fall to your knees and have to pull in your feet at the last second before he slams and locks the door again. He won't stop staring at the parking lot, but he speaks to you in a desperate, ragged whisper. You start to ask what happened, but he cuts you off, putting his hands together and begging. Please don't make me go back outside. You can stay. Just tell me what happened, you say, trying to calm the hysteria you see in his eyes. He's racing around the room now, checking the seals on the windows. You don't understand. The bee bathroom doors don't go all the way to the ground. There's enough space for them to get through. This is a deep, primal fear, the kind that plays on the psychological phenomenon of xenoglossophobia, or the fear of the unknown language or communication. He's talking about an entity that is not just chasing him, but one that is small enough to get under a stall door. This links to another unsettling fact. Many classic ghost stories, especially those dealing with hags or predatory spirits, involve the entities targeting victims in the liminal spaces of a home, windows, doorways, or even the space beneath a bed. It's the gap between safety and the outside world. You press him, trying to get a rational answer. What exactly is going to get through? What do you mean? He grabs your shoulders, his breath reeking, and hysterically spits the story out. I was attacked when I was sleeping. Got here Friday. They trapped me in my tent. I don't know what they were, Needles. I couldn't believe my eyes. Yeah, it was needles poking through the tent walls. You try to remain skeptical in any criminal investigation. The immediate distress of a witness is carefully weighed against the plausibility of their claims. But he is convincing. He says the needles hurt like hell, and he started to feel weak. He had to run. This is a twisted version of rule number 4. Do not sleep inside any attraction or structure that is not explicitly designated as staff quarters. The mesh is not sufficient protection. You manage to escape his grasp and reach over the desk for the phone. You dial 911 and ask for an ambulance. As you do, he keeps rambling about how he crushed so many of them with my hands. You look back over at him, and you realize he does not look good. He loses balance, slides like a rag doll to the floor, barely missing the water fountain. You rush over to him. You confirm a pulse while yelling for help. This isn't a prank. This is real. You stare at the locked door, the man unconscious at your feet, and the terrible image of needles poking through fabric. You wonder if this is why your parents kicked you out, because they knew you'd wind up in a situation you couldn't afford to be in. But that's a thought for another time. Right now, something is coming for this man, and you're locked inside with him. Ranger comes running inside, his eyes widening when he sees the unconscious body on the floor. What happened? He yells, rushing over to help. I don't know. He said he was attacked. Needles, you shout back, the words sounding insane even to your own ears. Reese examines the man's skin. These wounds don't look like anything I've seen before. What was he attacked by? All over his skin are scratches and unidentifiable bites. The man looks like he's having an allergic reaction to whatever it was. Reese jokes darkly. Maybe it was vampire bats, for all we knew. While Wheeze disappears into the office to grab alcohol and gauze bandages, you're stuck on the word needles. You feel completely useless, waiting for the EMTs to arrive. You spend those hours rethinking all your life choices, wondering why you even took this escape job. The EMTs tell you the hiker needs blood immediately. It's not just the wounds or the desperation in his eyes. It's the sheer unknown of what left those bites. The next morning, you and Wheeze set out to investigate where the guest had been staying. He wasn't technically a camper in the park's designated area, but he'd been found near the river of the lost attraction, a long, winding flume ride that runs alongside a quiet, forgotten brook. This area is known for its quiet, secluded spots. The guest had left everything behind, his gear strewn about like the aftermath of some fierce battle. His pack was tossed against a decorative, fake tree, but his food was sealed inside an official, heavy-duty park park storage locker. Clothes were still hanging from a plastic branch to dry. You find his small, dome-shaped tent, which he had clearly set up in a restricted area. The tent flap is open, the zipper billowing lightly in the damp morning breeze. This confirms rule number 5. Do not attempt to enter or exit a closed ride track once the main power is off. It is an unsterile environment. The guest had clearly broken the rule by setting up camp in a restricted ride area. You peer inside the tent. An acrid, sickening smell makes you retch immediately. It's a smell of decay, but not the natural decay of a dead animal. You cover your nose with your shirt, steeling yourself for a corpse. What you see inside is like nothing you have ever seen. You realize you have to tell yourself to bear with me for what I'm going to tell you next, because it's like nothing I have ever seen. Inside the tent, lying flat, is a face. Not a head, not a body, but a face. It's too small to be human, but human nonetheless. It's deflated, lying flat like a cheap, melted latex Halloween mask, but too realistic to be a costume. The eyes are gray and glassy, and the nose is concave. But the most horrifying detail is the hair patchy, wiry human hair. A beard sprouting from oily skin. You scream for Wheeze to come take a look. You back up too far, lose your footing on a rusty pole, and fall to the ground. What did you find? Wheeze yells, dropping a promotional banner the guest had used as a ground sheet, and sprinting toward you. You point to the open tent flap. Wheeze pulls the flap back slowly, takes one look inside, ducks away, and retches. It's the smell, the terrible, unnatural smell. You take a second to calm down. Wheeze, holding his breath, grabs a maintenance pole and fishes the thing out of the tent. The horrific fact you realize now is that in some forms of ancient black magic, the skin of an enemy was used to create effigies, or skin masks, that would then be animated by a predatory spirit, allowing the spirit to temporarily inhabit the enemy's likeness. Wheeze is the skeptic, trying to find a mundane explanation. An investigative response to this would be to immediately assume it's a discarded film prop, or an incredibly elaborate, custom-made latex mask designed to resemble the hiker. But the smell, you both stand a few feet away, staring at the face. You realize the face is attached to a small, mangled body. You can make out individual parts, a leg here and wings there. It's completely destroyed, not human, but too big to be a bird or insect. Whatever it was, the hiker had fought and killed it, smashing the small body, but the human-looking face remained. You can't stop looking at it, and you start to wonder if this face is a reflection of the hiker's own deep-seated, hidden horror. You stare at the deflated eyes and wonder if the creature was designed to scare the victim to death. Like a tiny, airborne doppelganger, the sight of that deflated face, attached to the body of a monstrous, winged insect, has shaken you to your core. You and Wheeze start the long walk back toward the main gates in silence. The sun is rising, but the park feels darker than ever. You're deep in your own head. It couldn't have been the hiker's face, right? The man who collapsed in the visitor center. You wonder if Wheeze is thinking what you're thinking, that it had almost looked exactly like the guy who'd been attacked. The resemblance was uncanny, right down to the wiry beard. The narrow beams of light from your headlamps guide your way along the access road, providing little comfort as you trudge toward the parking lot. You're miles down the road when you and Wheeze stop to drink water. You're already planning your escape, thinking about getting in your car, calling the police, and leaving this nightmare job behind. The Utah environment, the desert, the isolation. It all seems comforting now compared to this lush, green horror. Then he stops you. Promise not to be mad, he says, the beam from his headlamp blinding you for a second. You swallow a gulp of stale water from your bottle. You try to lighten the mood with nervous humor. Let me guess. You made a perfect replica mask of that guy's face and put it in the tent to scare me. Then you emptied a backpack full of dead animals into it for the realistic smell. He doesn't smile. I found something else. I wasn't going to tell you because I thought you'd be mad. But it doesn't make sense to keep this from you. I'm scared, and I'm sorry. I just don't want to be the only one who knows about this in case something happens. You brace yourself for whatever terrifying admission is coming next. I found something in the pond next to his campsite, he says. He removes his pack, unzips the largest compartment, and pulls out a maintenance uniform jacket wrapped around something. He pulls the jacket back to reveal an elongated black rock. The light from your headlamp reflects brilliantly off the smooth surface. It's perfectly smooth and pill-shaped, about the size of a football. Wheeze tells you to touch it. Apprehensively, you lay your palm against it. It's warm, almost alive. We have to bring some evidence back. No one will believe us if we don't, he states. You immediately argue. We should have burned it, Wheeze. You feel the primal urge to destroy the unknown. Wheeze pushes back, trying to maintain his professional duty. We can't burn it. If it's some new species, and it's coming after hikers, it's our duty as stewards of the environment and for the safety of the visitors to tell people. You respond with a furious, sarcastic nobility. How noble of you. If it was up to me, we'd take that thing out of your pack, lay it on the ground, and stomp on it. You're past being skeptical now. You're straight into primal defense. I don't care if an alien embryo pops out in the sludge. We need to kill it before it hatches. He shakes his head. See, I knew you'd act this way. He wraps it back in the jacket and closes his pack before you can get any bright ideas. You fall behind on the trail. You think the whole thing is short-sighted and dangerous. Evidence is not on your list of priorities at the moment. You resolve to stay far enough behind Wheeze to at least be ready if the creature hatches. If you're behind him, you can at least see it coming and grab something to defend yourself. You recall the final rule that applies to the park's many water features. Rule number 6. Never retrieve anything that falls into the river of the lost. wishing well or the main fountain, especially if it is warm. The knowledge that your supervisor has just broken one of the strange rules for the sake of evidence fills you with dread. It's an eerie or odd fact that the fear of eggs or holes, known as trypophobia, is often rooted in an evolutionary aversion to signs of disease or parasitic infection. That perfectly smooth, warm, pill-shaped object is hitting every single one of those buttons. An investigative process would mandate the immediate isolation of the object in a sterile, temperature-controlled environment, not a damp backpack. You walk as fast as you can without overtaking him. You know you'll have to deal with the egg when you get back, and you can only pray it stays dormant until then. You realize you're not worried about the thing in the egg anymore. You're worried about Wheeze. You finally make it back to the visitor center, the morning sun casting long, pale shadows across the park. The first thing you and Wheeze do is dispose of the egg. It goes straight into the heavy-duty drinks cooler. You close the latch, then stack no less than 6 concrete cinder blocks on top of it. It seems ridiculous, a desperate measure against the unknown, but the weight provides a temporary sense of security. You start packing immediately. You had made your decision hours ago on the hike. You are leaving. This is smart, and I don't want to be a part of it, you tell Wheeze, who watches you with a worried face. You should come too. Wheeze is the voice of reason, or perhaps denial, in this terrifying situation. You can leave. I'm not going to try to stop you, he says. But at least wait until morning. The park's service roads are risky to drive at night. If you got stuck or took a wrong turn, you could be weaving the switchbacks all night. He then adds the only truly compelling reason. Also, I don't think we should split up. He has a point. At the very least, you don't think you should split up. You've both witnessed something that cannot be explained, and you are both profoundly unsettled. You decide to stay on the condition that both of you leave early in the morning together. You shake on it, the agreement feeling fragile and temporary, like a truce. To calm the nerves, Wheeze pours you both a drink, whiskey, neat. He disappears into his room for a moment, opens a wooden case stashed away under his bunk that you've not seen before. He brings out cigarettes. You'd quit smoking, but you take one anyway. You drink more than you should have, letting your theories run wild. You try to find a normal explanation for the face, circling back to the idea that maybe the hiker made a mask of himself, using animal skin for some kind of cheap, horrifying thrill. But that doesn't explain the unnatural smell. Then you go darker, laughing hysterically at the sheer impossibility of it all. Maybe the hiker hated his twin brother with an acid hatred that poisoned every moment of their lives. Maybe he was paranoid and disturbed, so he'd murdered his brother, throwing his body into the pond. You laugh, letting your crazy imaginations run wild. In reality, the guy had seemed pretty normal, shook up, but normal. He stumbles over to the logbook, where guests log in and reserve campsites, or in this case, park access. Okay, we can put that one to rest. He didn't check in with a twin brother, he says, smiling, losing balance, but managing to catch himself. He scrolls slowly down a list of names. At least no one on this list. Then he pauses, reading silently to himself for a beat. Wait a minute. OSH asterisk T. No, 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 this can't be right. You jump out of your seat, joining him at the logbook. His finger points at the long list of names. The two most recent logins had not logged out. Two names, Rachel and John, from Kentucky, a reimagined Tennessee. They checked in Friday. Destination, forgotten Ferris wheel. It is now Sunday night. Most backpackers arrive on a Friday and are back at their cars by Sunday morning. These hikers never checked out. The forgotten Ferris wheel is part of the infamous 10-mile maintenance loop. But the overlook, where most people set up camp, is only 5 miles in and out. The Ferris wheel itself is in the same area as the Tower of Twilight, making a roughly 5-mile trek to the farthest point. The chilling realization of the number is a powerful example of the law of threes in folklore, where 3 is often cited as the number of malevolence or doom. 3 witches, 3 knocks, 3 days. This incident involves 3 victims in quick succession. You look at Wheeze, and he breaks the silence first. Sobering up is for the fishes. He takes one more swig of whiskey. You realize the final rule. Rule number 7 applies now. If you find 2 guests unaccounted for in the park logbook after 48 hours, you must wait for morning, then notify the W team. Do not, under any circumstances, approach the forbidden zone at night, but they haven't logged out. You start packing immediately, mechanically filling water bottles, throwing energy bars into your day packs. The 5-mile hike is not too long for either of you, even at night. You've done this exact hike hundreds of times. You've spent weeks out there, living out of a base camp, and working each day on maintaining the trail. You curse when you realize you hadn't plugged in your headlamp to charge. You need weapons. After quickly surveying the shed, you land on a maintenance pickaxe and a canister of heavy-duty pressurized grease bear spray. For a second, you almost laugh at the image of the 2 of you gearing up, about to set off into the dark to rescue some poor, unaware hikers you desperately need to sober up now. The idea of being seen by something you can't see is a well-known eerie fact that nocturnal animals like owls use specialized feathers to fly in almost complete silence, meaning a human will often sense a presence nearby. But here, absolutely nothing. You know that out here, a hiking trail is barely a refuge from the elements. You feel a creeping dread, knowing everything else can see you, but you can't see anything. And those 2 people, Rachel and John, have been out there for almost 2 days, breaking one of the most fundamental rules of the park. You wonder if they've already met the same fate as the first hiker. It's always eerie to hike at night. Having such a narrow cone of vision is unsettling, even though you know the area. You and Wheeze click on your headlamps, both using the red lights to avoid losing night vision. You start walking as fast as you can without wearing yourselves out. The moon lights your path until you reach the trailhead, where the massive, looming trees quickly swallow you whole for several hours. The hike feels long, very different at night, like the landmarks are further away. Everything blends together. Your headlamps cast light over looming tree limbs, and beetles scatter from the path in front of your boots. You hear something crack a stick just beyond the trees, but you just keep moving, your heart pounding a frantic rhythm against your ribs. At one point, you hear Whis whisper to himself, miles before smiles. It's an old hiking mantra, usually said by people who are tired. But you know you're both sober now, and finally able to take in the gravity of your situation. You feel disoriented when you arrive at the base of the hill, the 5-mile mark on the loop. This is the clearing, the point on the forgotten Ferris wheel maintenance loop where you emerge from a densely wooded area and find yourself at the bottom of a huge hill. It's normally a stunning spot, known for its amazing views. It's a popular place for hikers to stop, partly because it's beautiful during the day, and partly because you can see the huge climb that lies ahead. This elevation change is higher than any other point in the park. You stop here to fortify yourself. You and Whis are drinking water, trying to catch your breath when you see them. Rachel and John are staying at one of the more popular areas, right near the base of the unused, forgotten Ferris wheel structure. The light coming from their small emergency tent, pitched right beneath the massive wheel, is flickering on and off, on and off, on and off. You and Whis stare at the light, both quickly recognizing the pattern. 3 short flashes of the light, followed by 3 long flashes, then 3 short flashes again. SOS in Morse code. You drop your water bottles and sprint up the hill towards the tent. You're completely out of breath as you get closer. Then you hear it, a mysterious buzzing noise. It's faint at first, like a helicopter that is very far away. As you get closer, it begins to sound more like a house fly does when it flies close to your ear. But at 10 times the scale, you're reminded of the folklore surrounding the Jersey Devil, a creature often described as having leathery, bat-like wings and emitting a blood-curdling scream. Or, crucially, a strange, high-pitched whirring sound as it flies through the pine barrens. The buzzing here feels like a dark, insectal version of that scream. You push yourself, cresting the last rock step, and turn your head to point the headlamp at the tent. The buzzing is now deafening, and it's coming from inside. There's an erratic battering against the inner walls of the tent. It sounds exactly like wings. You pause for a second. You realize an eerie or odd fact. When you hear a sound, your brain first processes the pitch, but it uses the time difference between the sound hitting your 2 ears to triangulate the source. If a sound is too loud or too close, this triangulation fails, leading to temporary disorientation and panic. The sound is so loud now that it it's causing a painful pressure in your inner ear. Just then, the girl inside sees your light, and she screams for help, pure terror in her voice. You shout back that you are coming. Wheeze is right behind you as you approach the tent. The sound is impossible now. The tent is covered with a separate outer waterproof layer, the rainfly. It's like one tent set up over a smaller tent to keep the rain out. You realize the entities are trapped in the space between the two layers. You grab the zipper for the outer door. Any responsible investigator would secure the scene and wait for backup. But these people are counting on you. You realize that your escape is going to have to wait. You unzip the outer door, and the sight that greets you will haunt you for the rest of your days. They are like giant flying insects. They hover between the inner mesh tent and the outer rainfly, moving like aggressive hummingbirds, their large, transparent wings beating against the material. The buzzing noise is the sound of those wings moving at an impossibly high speed. If they see an opportunity, they poke their needle-like mouth through the mesh window, aiming to make contact with the poor hiker's skin. The word needles finally makes terrifying sense. On their backs, you can see large, translucent sacs filled with a thick red liquid. It has to be blood. The beating of their wings is impossibly loud. They sense you behind them, and in a terrifying moment of coordinated movement, they retract their needles from the tent walls with surgical precision. Then, just as quickly, they fly off into the night, disappearing into the dark foliage of the Ferris wheel structure. You try to follow them with your headlamp, but you immediately lose them in the trees. They are too quick, their wings moving at a speed you wouldn't have thought possible for their size. When they fly, they move like dragonflies or hummingbirds, able to shift at any angle, forward, back, or diagonal. It's an aerial nightmare. You open the tent flap again. The hikers are both inside. You see the girl, Rachel, and ask her if she is okay. She is clutching a sleeping pad, halfway deflated, and has been using it to bat away the needles as they repeatedly lunged for her skin. She's completely and utterly traumatized, panicked beyond measure. The boy, John, is passed out behind her. You whisper that it's going to be okay, instructing her to stay put, and that you and Wheeze will be right back. You leave them in the relative safety of the tent. You and Wheeze sweep the clearing with your lights, bouncing the beams from one tree to the other. You wait for the sound of wings, but the silence is immediate and oppressive. You know they are either too far away for you to hear them, or they have landed. This rapid, silent transition from hyperaudible to total silence is a classic technique in horror, playing on the odd fact that the cocktail party effect in the brain, which allows you to focus on a single voice in a crowded room, can also be weaponized by silence, forcing you to focus entirely on the absence of sound, which heightens the terror. He startles you when he grabs your arm. He points his headlamp to a low steel girder, part of the Ferris wheel structure, about 10 feet high. There, perched like a massive, nocturnal owl, is one of the creatures. you think you will lose your mind just looking at it. A human face sits atop an insect's segmented body. The face has a dull, blank expression. It does not blink, nor do the pupils dilate in the bright, focused beam of your headlamp. It's a face missing the crucial essence that makes it look truly human. The body is all black, segmented like an insect. It just sits there, eerily grooming its front legs with its back legs. Like a giant cricket, the wings are folded back, transparent, resting behind the body. The material reflects your headlamps, flashing when it catches the correct angle. The eyes never once turn to look at you. You're reminded of the dark superstition that a spirit or entity that has copied a human face will not blink or acknowledge direct light, because its imitation is purely physical and lacks the instinctual response of life. Suddenly, you hear the unmistakable sound of wings closing in on you from a distance. You and Weiss brace yourselves, neither of you wanting to take your light away from the creature perched above. The beating of wings gets closer and closer, then stops. Another one has landed on the same girder, the weight of its body causing a slight tremor in the massive structure. Both creatures stay hauntingly still as you watch them from below. You don't know what to do. The standard protocol for encountering an unidentifiable, potentially hostile organism is retreat and containment, not engagement. The eerie silence is broken only when Rachel screams from inside the tent, "For the love of God, kill THEM." At that moment, the two entities move in unison. They descend from the girder to the ground, leaves and dust scattering as they land. They start walking toward you. The entities look like giant, grotesque crickets when they walk on the ground. But these are crickets with blank human faces, twitching and cocking to the side as they approach. You are terrified, a deep, paralyzing fear, but you feel the solid, reassuring weight of the maintenance pickaxe in your hand. You carried it all this way, and now, finally, you are ready. Just then, Weiss disappears. You briefly panic. Is he leaving you? No, he's grabbing a heavy, moss-covered cinder block from the perimeter of the abandoned Ferris wheel fire pit. They keep coming closer and closer, your headlamp never leaving them for a second. Just a few feet away now, the terrible truth is fully illuminated. They have the faces of the boy and the girl in the tent. The mimicry is uncanny. You can't believe your eyes. The creature on the right, mimicking Rachel, has pale blue eyes. The one approaching on the left, mimicking John, has a strong jawline and dark, exhausted rims around its eyes. You realize this is the true horror of the 7 strange rules. They are not just physical barriers, they are psychological defenses against an enemy that steals your identity before stealing your life. The act of breaking a rule is what allows the entity to acquire the victim's face, as if the fear itself is the catalyst for the copying. You brace yourself, ready to swing the pickaxe down with all your strength. You're sure one of them is going to start running at you, and you'll miss, and it will scurry up your leg. You You imagine it stabbing you through the heart with its needle mouth to extract the DNA needed to mimic your own face. But they don't run. They just keep walking toward you slowly, in terrifying unison. They are nearly within the range of your swing when they open their mouths wide. It reveals a cavernous, terrifying pit of gums and teeth. If they spoke, you know you would have screamed. You can't move, paralyzed by the sight. Then, from the back of their throats, a long, black, snake-like appendage emerges. It looks like an elephant's trunk, but it's segmented and wet. This must be the needle, the terrifying proboscis they use to attack. Just then, Whis heaves his cinder block. It goes through the air in slow motion, making direct, sickening contact with the bug, imitating the boy, John. The block smashes down on top of it, a direct hit. The other insect, the one imitating Rachel, skitters away into the dark foliage of the Ferris wheel structure. You look back at the injured creature. It is trying to escape mechanically, flailing like an insect stuck to a glue trap. You bring your pickaxe down on its face. The impact is wet and heavy. It stops moving. You and Whis look at each other, adrenaline surging through your veins. Where did the other one go? You ask, eyes darting from tree to tree. I don't know, but keep looking. They can run as fast as they can fly, Whis replies, his voice ragged. The second insect skitters towards your feet, too fast for you to swing your pickaxe again. You swing, you miss, and you jump into the air at the last second to avoid it running up your legs. The creature runs underneath you and disappears again into the trees. You hear it fly, then stop. Fly, then stop. It's stalking you. This immediate, paralyzing counterattack is reminiscent of a well-known psychological study, the weapon focus effect, where an extreme threat causes a witness to focus solely on the weapon or point of attack, blinding them to critical contextual clues. You are too focused on the face, and now the other creature has the advantage. You and Whis stand back to back, you holding the pickaxe, and Whis wielding the canister of pressurized grease bear spray. You look up, and the creature is directly above you, perched on a hanging service wire. It drops onto you from the wire. You duck so it doesn't land on your face. It's so heavy, and its talons dig into your back. You drop your pickaxe and frantically start reaching behind you, trying to tear it off. The creature's talons are digging painfully into your back. You catch hold of its wings, which feel like brittle, cold cellophane, and pull as hard as you can, throwing the heavy body to the ground. It immediately tries to fly away, its wings whirring up to that deafening buzz again. But Whis is already on it. He immediately starts dousing it with the pressurized grease bear spray. It's stunned, disabled, coated in a sticky, corrosive film. It starts hopping away blindly, its segmented body twitching. You and Whis catch up to it quickly. Whis jumps onto it with both his feet, crushing it beneath his heavy boots. The sound is sickening, like a full rain puddle being stomped on. Blood, that thick, black, viscous fluid you saw beneath the break room door, splatters everywhere, on Weeze, on you, and across the tent. There is absolutely no time to lose. You rush to Rachel and ask her if she can walk. She nods, terrified but functional. You abandon the campsite, all their gear, the tent, the horrific remains of the creatures, leaving it all behind. He scoops up the unconscious boy, John, in his arms, and you set about on the long trek back toward the main park. As the morning light filters through the dense tree cover, you begin to see the extent of their wounds. Both Rachel and John are covered in the same telltale marks that covered the first hiker. Perfect raised circles with a single dark spot of blood in the center. They look like huge, allergic mosquito bites. You realize the first hiker, with his ramblings, was utterly truthful. Your mind goes wild on the long walk back. You connect the evidence. The creatures took on the likeness of the animals they drank the blood of. The insect body is a disguise, but the face is a trophy, or perhaps a temporary biological copy. It has to be some old-world evolutionary advantage, a form of mimicry so complete that a long-extinct creature would have used it to infiltrate or terrify its prey. You realize the implication of the 7 strange rules. They weren't just about park safety. They were a set of highly specific, localized defensive measures designed to prevent this organism from getting the chance to copy you. Rule 1, 3 o'clock a.m. exit. The time the creatures hunt, the time they can breach the boundary. Rule 2, mascot heads. Avoid looking at the faces, lest the image be stolen. Rule 4, sleeping in an attraction prevents the needles from getting easy access to the skin. Rule 6, retrieving items from water prevents contact with the creature's egg nest. The creatures are a biological, predatory form of cryptid, a dark, inverse version of the Fae folk of Celtic lore, who were often rumored to steal the faces or forms of loved ones, leaving behind a terrifying changeling in their place. You're walking through a nightmare, a park that is supposed to be fun, but hides an ancient, parasitic life. You shouldn't be telling anyone any of this, but it all happened a few weeks ago. The park has been officially closed since then, with maintenance and repair signs posted everywhere. But you still feel like it's your duty to warn any would-be hikers or visitors. You make it back to the visitor center, utterly exhausted. The first thing you do is unlock the cinder blocks. The sound is immediate and alarming. A furious, erratic battering inside the cooler. The egg has already hatched, but luckily, the cinder blocks held tight. You and Weeze sit down to wait for the ambulance and the police. But who arrives is not what you expect. A team comes out. They are probably from the government or some specialized agency, but you don't really know. They certainly won't tell you anything. Their vans are unmarked, but they do wear uniforms. The uniforms have a weird symbol that you don't recognize, like a circle with arrows pointing inwards. Reese whispers that he'd heard of them, calling them the W Team, Wonderworld Internal Security. You, however, had dug around on the internet when you were bored one night and recognized the symbol. It looks remarkably similar to the insignia for an organization called SCP. It stands for Secure, Contain, Protect. The eerie, odd fact you recall now is that in classic Gothic horror, the existence of a secret society or agency dedicated to monitoring the paranormal, like the W Team, is often a sign that the threat is endemic and has been living beneath the surface of civilization for centuries. They are professional, silent, and terrifyingly efficient. Your escape is now impossible. You are now part of the containment. The W Team, or SCP, as you mentally label them, moves with ruthless efficiency. You and Wheeze show them the cooler where you stashed the hatched egg. The creature inside is still thrashing, trying to escape its prison. You watch as the team prepares to secure the specimen. They drill a hole in the top of the heavy-duty cooler. You get a horrifying glimpse as the black, snake-like appendage, the proboscis you saw earlier, tries desperately to get through the small hole. The team acts instantly, feeding a clear tube through the hole. Then they fill the cooler with a thick, viscous liquid. The furious, erratic battering inside the cooler immediately goes silent. The fluid, whatever it is, has neutralized the organism. They cart the cooler off, but not before wrapping it 3 times with what looks like regular duct tape. A chillingly low-tech measure for such a high-stakes containment. They tell you and Wheeze to hold back, that you can't go with them. But Wheeze insists that you need to show them the exact spot at the river of the lost attraction where he found the egg. He emphasizes that this is a nesting site. When you arrive at the long-drained reservoir, they waste no time. They don scuba gear, thick, black, high-tech suits, several of them disappearing under the dark, stagnant water of the flume track. You and Wheeze stand at the bank, watching the still water. When they come out, they speak among themselves for a while, their voices low and professional, communicating in terms you don't understand. Then their leader walks over and gives you the final word. He says the organism is clearly an extremely localized parasitic species, and that they have ways of killing the queen. They tell you the nest shouldn't bother you anymore, and that the area is safe to swim, or in this case, to maintain. They walk you and Wheeze back into the woods, taking you to a section of the old Ferris wheel support structure. The team leader gives a signal to a man with a detonator. A low, violent tremor rocks the earth below you. A loud, muffled whump echoes through the park. They were thorough and terrifyingly professional. They haven't just cleared the nest, they've destroyed the physical environment. The leader stares at you, his eyes holding the absolute authority of a government agency that exists only in whispers. What you saw, he says, is classified. You will not discuss the origin of the hiker's wounds, the creatures, or the egg with anyone. You will maintain the story that this was a gas leak from an old maintenance shed that has now been contained. This is the ultimate rule of this park, the one that makes the other 7 meaningless. The truth must never leave Wonderworld. You realize that all the phenomena you've seen, the strange lights, the scratching, the terrifying entities, were merely effects of a localized biological event. The eerie or odd fact is that this is the exact philosophy of the SCP Foundation: to provide plausible deniability, the secure part to the public, no matter how ridiculous the cover story, to prevent mass hysteria. You ask Weiss later if he's going to stay. He just shrugs. He's been here longer. He knows the drill. Any skeptical mind would recognize that the speed and authority of the W team indicate this is not their first encounter with this organism. You walk back to the visitor center alone, the air feeling lighter, but the silence now feels like a controlled environment, not natural peace. You're grateful for the safety, but you're not so sure it's truly gone. The paranoia sets in. Was the detonation enough? You know the Warrens, famous paranormal investigators, often cited that a demonic presence must be expelled and contained, not merely destroyed. The creature's origin is still unknown, and that leaves you with an unsettling thought. If the creature takes the face of the animal it feeds on, and one of the entities was so eager to land on your back, what face would the next one have taken? Weeks pass in a blur of mandated maintenance and unnerving silence. The park is officially set to reopen soon, but the section around the old Ferris wheel remains cordoned off with high-security fencing. Weiss is subdued, going about his duties with grim, detached professionalism. He drinks more now, but he doesn't talk about the incident. You, however, can't let it go. You're constantly searching the perimeter, checking the seals on the windows, and listening to the high-pitched hum of the machinery. You've become paranoid, a trait that the W team's silence only exacerbated. You keep thinking about the final, horrifying detail of the first creature you saw. The human-looking face that melted and deflated. It wasn't just a mask. It was a physical copy that wasn't designed to last outside the creature's life cycle. You're reminded of the classic horror archetype of the doppelganger, a twin spirit or double that often foreshadows death. But this was physical. One night, you're alone in the security office, monitoring the park's surveillance feeds. You've been explicitly told that these cameras are for public liability and property damage only. But you can't help but check the dark, distant feed from camera 4, which points directly at the perimeter fence near the river of the lost. You recall an eerie or odd fact that seems to apply to the technology here. Modern facial recognition software can be easily fooled by hyperrealistic masks or deepfake technology, suggesting that the perfect mimicry you witnessed may not be a weakness, but a predatory advantage against a technologically reliant society. You lean close to the grainy, black and white monitor. The screen is dark, mostly showing the dense, quiet tree line. You feel compelled to zoom in on the edge of the fence, where the woods meet the old, rusted flume track. You see a brief movement in the shadows, a segmented, black shape scuttling low to the ground. It's too quick to be sure, but it looks insectal. You immediately grab the camera controls to track it as you scan the camera left across a long, empty stretch of the old flume. Your eyes catch the reflective surface of the camera's protective glass dome itself, which is catching the light from your desk lamp, and for a split second, you think you see your own face hovering outside the glass. Not your face in the reflection, but your face superimposed on the dark screen, looking back at you. It's a chilling vision. You look up at the actual one-way mirror that covers the security office window. Nothing is there. You look back at the screen, and the image is gone, replaced by the normal, grainy video feed. But for that instant, the face you saw had your eyes, your jawline, and your unnerving, unblinking intensity. It was the blank, copied face of the creatures you killed, but wearing your expression. It was like seeing the blank slate, the template of the creature that was destined to wear your skin, waiting for its chance. You realize this is the essence of psychological horror, the uncertainty. Was it a trick of the light, stress, or a final warning? A cognitive psychologist would argue this is a classic case of projection and high-stress visual hallucination stemming from unresolved trauma. You spend the next several hours running the memory through your mind. Could the creature that skittered away and landed on your back have successfully performed its dark task before you managed to throw it off? You think about the rule number 2 that we mentioned. Do not look directly at the mascot heads or discarded uniforms after midnight, especially if they are wet. It's not about the heads being wet. It's about the entity having a blank face and needing an image to copy. And that last encounter was wet with blood and grease. You sit back in your chair, the adrenaline draining away, leaving you cold and empty. You realize you can't leave this place. You have to stay, if only to monitor the feeds, to keep yourself safe, and to make sure your face doesn't show up again. You try to convince yourself that the W team was right, that they killed the queen, but you still think you see your own face hovering outside the glass. It's a silent reminder that you may be safe, but you are not clean. The experience is now physically ingrained, and you've seen too much to ever look at your own reflection the same way again. The park is reopening, and the danger you suspect is far from over. The park reopens 2 days later. It's a surreal, brightly lit carnival of noise and color, juxtaposed against your dark, internal fear. You're back on duty, directing cheerful families and pointing them toward the refurbished carousel of dreams. The irony is suffocating. Reese back to his calm, professional self, as if the entire incident was, as the W team mandated, nothing more than a localized gas leak and a subsequent controlled demolition. You and he communicate now in a series of careful, coded glances, a shared trauma that can't be put into words. You're constantly vigilant, checking the park guests for the telltale mosquito-like bites. So far, the crowds look normal, healthy, and blissfully unaware of the ancient predator living just beneath the surface of the asphalt and steel. You recall another piece of regional folklore, the myth of the skinwalker in Navajo culture, an entity that can shapeshift by wearing the skin of an animal or person, which often leaves them with a subtle, unblinking appearance or an unnatural gait. The creatures you killed moved with that same unblinking malice, that unnatural gait. You know, the W team didn't get all of them. Your job now involves more patrol near the Forbidden Zone, the perimeter of the old Ferris wheel. The fencing is new, high, and electric. You and Wheeze are assigned to check the fence every 2 hours. During one patrol, he stops you. He's looking at a small, almost imperceptible nick in the steel fence, a tiny burn mark. They told us the nest was neutralized, he whispers, using the coded language of the W team. You point your headlamp low to the ground. There, stuck to the bottom of the wire, is a single, clear, minuscule fragment. You recognize the material immediately. It's a piece of the transparent wing. It's an eerie or odd fact that entomologists often note that many insect exoskeletons and wing fragments are incredibly durable and can survive extreme heat or environmental destruction, essentially leaving a lasting biological signature. The fragment here is proof. You stare at the fragment, letting the terror sink in. They are still here. They survived the controlled demolition. The queen isn't dead, you whisper. They just pushed her back. Wee's face is grim. He finally breaks his silence on the rules. Rule number 5. Do not attempt to enter or exit a closed ride track once the main power is off. It is an unsterile environment. He pauses, his eyes meeting yours. John and Rachel broke that rule. They probably slept on the track itself. It gave the creatures time to copy their faces perfectly before they even woke up. He's talking about how quickly the creatures can act, the surgical precision of their attack. The terrifying conclusion is that they may have been copied or even killed while the SOS was still flashing. You realize the truth. Your warning is not just for the public, it's for yourself. Any journalist attempting to expose this would face immediate, credible threats and massive efforts at character assassination by the organization responsible for the cover-up. You feel a profound sense of isolation. No one will ever believe you. You remember your life in Utah a lifetime ago. Now, you're here, hundreds of miles away, guarding a dark secret. You wonder if this is what your parents meant by facing real life as an adult. Suddenly, the park lights flicker, the massive floodlights bathing the carousel of dreams in bright, unsettling light. The power hums low, then steadies. You and Wheeze exchange a glance. The power grid in the park is notoriously stable. That flicker wasn't normal. It felt intentional. You hear the distant, faint sound of a child laughing, but the park is officially closed for the night, and all the guests are long gone. You look toward the source of the sound, and you see nothing, just the dark, silent rides. Weiss pulls his hat down low over his eyes. "Let's just finish the round and get back inside," he says. "But you both know that inside is no safer than out. The last time you were inside, the egg had hatched. You decide you must find out what caused the power flicker. It's too specific, too targeted. It feels like a challenge, a sign that the entity is trying to communicate. You wonder if the true queen is still out there, possibly trying to replicate the biggest target in the park, the security system itself." You and Weiss hurry back to the security office. The main goal of the W team wasn't to eliminate the organism, but to ensure that the public could enjoy their summer without the cognitive dissonance of facing a biological horror. Secure, contain, protect. You rush into the office, the lights humming normally now. You and Weiss scan the screens, looking for any sign of a breach or a reason for the flicker. Nothing. All sensors are green. Weiss checks the power log. Localized grid surge, probably just the old transformer finally giving up the ghost, he says, attempting the skeptical, professional tone the W team taught him. You, however, walk straight to camera 4, the feed that points to the perimeter. You're looking for the scuttling, black shadow you saw earlier. You don't see the shadow, but you do see something unnervingly familiar. Lying right at the base of the forbidden Ferris wheel fence is a discarded object. It's small, dark, and perfectly pill-shaped. You can't be sure, but it looks exactly like the egg Weiss found in the water. You realize the queen is not dead. She's reproducing, and she's laying her eggs closer to the park's main infrastructure. The eerie or odd fact here is that in classic urban legends about secret biological warfare or corporate cover-ups, the organism's greatest weapon is not its attack, but its ability to survive an attempted extinction event, making its reappearance a profound statement of dominance. You grab the radio, ready to call the W team back, but Weiss puts his hand over yours. "No, we told them it was gone. If we call them now, will be the collateral damage." You look at him, realizing the terrible, final, unspoken rule of Wonderworld. Rule number 8, the unwritten rule. Never allow the W team to return to the park. Their containment always involves the containment of witnesses. You sit back in your chair, accepting the terrible reality that you are now the creature's warden. You are not a ranger or a maintenance worker. You are a living containment field. You lean back, allowing yourself a moment of exhaustion, and you glance up at the monitor screen for the main gate feed. The monitor is dark, showing only the reflection of the room lights. And for a long, quiet second, you see your own face staring back at you. But this time, it's not a mere reflection. It's the face you saw in the tent, the face that was missing the crucial essence of being truly human. The eyes are glassy, gray, and they do not blink. Your face is on the screen, superimposed over the image of the office, and it holds a dull, profound expression of vacant awareness. It's not just your face. It's the face wearing your features. You realize that when the creature landed on your back, It wasn't trying to feed. It was doing its dark, parasitic work. It copied your face, and it didn't even need to kill you to do it. It just needed enough contact, enough of your essence, your panic, your fear. And now, it's out there. The creature that wears your face is waiting. You slowly lean in, pushing your own face closer to the screen, watching your reflection move closer to the terrifying, stationary copy on the monitor. You are looking at the possibility of a new entity, a creature that is not mimicking a panicked hiker, but an employee, a warden, a creature that now knows the rules. You break the stare and turn to Wheeze, but you don't say anything. You can't. You can't break the final rule. You now understand the truth of the first warning. I'm here to give you a warning. Whatever you do, don't hike the Rock Ridge Trail. The trail is the park, and the warning is the only thing that's real. You realize the creature that landed on your back may not have needed your body, only your DNA. The face on the screen is not a ghost. It is the template for the next generation. You are living evidence, and the face that looks back at you, your face, is the true final monster in Wonderworld. This is a warning. Please do not visit the Wonderworld amusement park. The story is over now. You can take a deep breath. The buzzing is gone. The heavy scent of rusted steel and black blood has faded, and you are safe in your own space, under your own roof. Let the warmth of your blanket settle over you. It's natural to feel a lingering anxiety after a story like this. Our brains are designed to remember threats, even fictional ones, as a survival mechanism. But the windows are secure, the doors are locked, and there are no giant, unblinking insect faces waiting outside to greet you. The only thing outside is the quiet street and the promise of the morning light. Thank you for spending this night with me, venturing into the terrifying heart of Wonderworld and facing the truth of the 7 strange rules. I know it's been a long, dark road, but you made it through. Remember that sometimes the scariest stories are the ones that remind us how fragile our sense of reality is, and how quickly the ordinary can become the utterly unexplainable. Sleep peacefully tonight. Focus on the gentle sound of the rain, the hum of your electronics, the comforting, normal sounds of your world. Sleep peacefully, if you can, comforting, normal sounds of your world. Sleep peacefully, if you can.